So I just talked about, Transformers Deviations. Just give my reply, my thoughts, and everything to it. Mainly because, what I saw and heard from the car on the Stop the Fourth Wall deal. But let's talk about Deviations for a moment, shall we? Let's talk about it for a moment. I do apologize if I'll be a little distracted. I got the 49er Bronco game on right now. But anyway, let's talk about Deviations for a moment. Now, like Linkara explained in his review, Deviations was IDW's event comic. Kind of similar to what they did with the Infestation event, which crossed over a multitude of books. But here, Deviations didn't just cross over multiple of books, but basically what it did is it told stories that were on the verge of what ifs. Now, like I said in the previous video, I have nothing against these kind of stories. I think it's interesting. You want to try these things, just to see exactly what the scenario would be. And, with IDW doing these kind of stories, it is interesting to see their take, or at least a writer, whoever's writing the stories, take on what would happen if certain events happened differently. For example, one of the things that was brought up by Linkara, and you can even look this up online too, is basically, like I said, I have nothing against it, because it's always interesting to see these what-if scenarios of what would happen if, this event took place and all that. And like I mentioned, in the previous video, with My Little Pony, you have the story of what would happen if, Prince Blueblood was sent to Ponyville as Celestia's apprentice instead of Twilight Sparkle. That is kind of interesting. That's interesting. I'd like to read more about that book, because the way he's portrayed in the Grand Gallop in the season 1 finale, the Grand Galloping Galley, or the Big Galley, whatever it's called. I can't think of the name right now. He is treated as a stuck-up SOB, even to the point that it sickens Rarity. And when you sicken Rarity, that's saying something. And Rarity has been known to be very highfalutin at times, drama queen, whatever, but stays true to who she is. Even though there are times that she would like to live out the higher life, if you will. But again, she stays true to who she is and what her element represents. So it's interesting to see. It's interesting, to have that kind of a take of what would happen if it was Blue Blood and not Twilight. The same thing with G.I. Joe. It's like, what if Cobra won? What if they ruled the world? What if they were the ones dependent on winning, or protecting the world, or something like that? The same with the X-Files. What if it was Mulder's? I think it's Mulder, Scully and Mulder, right? It's like, what if it was, Scully or was it Mulder? I can't think of the other person who the guy was. I think it was Mulder or Scully. Correct me in the comments in the live chat, guys. But basically, it's what would happen if he got abducted instead of his sister, and his sister was the one teamed up with the redhead. I'll put it that way. Can't think of them. I'm getting the names mixed up, but still, it's like, what if that would have happened, kind of deal. What would happen if that changed up? What would happen if that switched up, and everything, and other licensed books as well that they have. And again, it's always interesting to go in these directions. It's always interesting to try these different stories, which, again, I have nothing against. I'm totally for. But, when it comes to the stories, as I mentioned in my Transformer one, to do them, you need to have respect to the original source material. You need to have some respect of the original source material. You can't just use a what-if story to basically annihilate, atomic bomb something you didn't like the writer did for Transformers Deviations, and his take on what would happen if Prime lived, in the movie instead of died. It, it's one of, it's one of those scenarios, it's one of those situations to where you need to have respect. You need to have respect, act for what came before, for what you're adapting, or for what you're alternating to a point, if you will. I mean, even Sonic the Hedgehog under the Archie license did this too. But they did it within the stories. They explained that there were multiverses. And yeah, this is kind of in that same realm. The IDW Deviations is part of a multiverse for them. But basically they stay true. But here's the thing. With Sonic, it's more about asking the question of, okay, what would happen if Sonic and the Freedom Fighters were the bad guys and Robotnik was the good guy? What would happen if Sonic and his friends lived in a world of superheroes and all that? What powers would they have? Who would be their villain and all that? I mean, heck, one of their stories that they did was kind of like an adaptation of Guardians of the Galaxy. And it had the Freedom Fighters as the Guardians, if you will. There was one that was kind of very Casablanca noir kind of storytelling, with Sonic, going, being a detective, going on a case to find Nicole. Things like that. The point that I'm getting at is these are examples of how things are done correctly. I mean, Marvel and DC have done these too, with their multiverses. Like, there are stories of, what if, Spider-Man got married? To Black Cat? What would happen if Wolverine and Jean Grey got together? And all these kind of things. What would happen if, Thomas Wayne was Batman and not Bruce, and Bruce was the one killed along with his mom? And Bruce was the one killed, and it caused his dad to become, like I said, Batman, and his mom to lose and become the Joker. Things like that. It's like, what would happen? All these are done, sometimes with various results, various results, but most times are accepted as pretty decent, as, believable stories of, yeah, I could see this happening if this was the Prime world that, the characters live in. So, they are acceptable, and they don't deviate, totally away from, from paying respect to the original source material, nor do they disrespect characters. They don't do that. I mean, people look at the fact that when they look at the Killing Joke and how Barbara Gordon was treated there, even in the animated adaptation, people will look at that as being an alternate multiverse of Batman. To where, yes, this happened, but in the Prime world, it didn't. And in the Prime world, Batgirl would be treated with more respect. Things like that. If you catch my drift, things like that. And with IDW's Deviations, you see that happening with a lot of these books, but hopefully most of them are not done in a way with, hopefully it's not done in a way that was kind of like with Transformers, where it's a total disrespect to, it's a total, disrespect to the original source material that they're adapting, or writing the what if story from. Hopefully it's with, it's not done in a way that disrespects it, but it's done with respect. That's what I'm trying to get at. And I do apologize again. I'm watching I have the 49ers Broncos game on right now. So I'm kind of going back and forth watching what's going on there. But here's the thing. Like I said, there's a difference of doing it with respect and not respect. And hopefully maybe the rest of IDW's books are done with respect. Or hopefully they were, done with respect when it came to this deviation series. Hopefully it was. But again, like I said, I'm not against this. Like I said in the previous video, and I'm going to say here, I'm not against these kind of stories. I love the idea of I love the idea of exploring and writing about, alternate takes on things. How things would have changed if this went this way or that went this way and stuff like that. Like I said, hopefully, they do these stories with respect, or have done the stories with respect. But like I said, and I know I'm repeating myself, I do apologize. I have nothing against these kind of stories, these kind of alternate takes. It's always kind of cool to see these things. It's always cool to see things on how, they could have played out a different way, and all that. I mean, when you look at the fact that people nowadays believe in the existence of multiverses, it's not hard it's not hard for us when we read these kind of stories to imagine ourselves in another version of ourselves in another universe, but us in a position that we wouldn't be in right now. Like for me, it's not hard to believe if multiverses exist that I exist in a universe where I'm the oldest. I'm the one that has the wife. I'm the one that has the kids and all that. I'm the one that owns the house and everything. It's not hard for me to imagine me being in that position. It's not hard for me to imagine myself in another universe where I'm a successful writer or I'm a successful professional wrestler or stuff like that. It's not hard to imagine that. It's not hard to imagine, those kind of scenarios. And that's why these kind of stories are always interesting when they get made, because it's just imagining what would happen, with the same characters that you come to love and enjoy, being put in scenarios that are more of what if, knowing that, hey, these are not canon. These are not, part of the, not part of the real continuity, unless they make them that way. But these are not, like I said, true continuations of the original stories. These are just one-shot deals, and that's cool to see. That's cool to hear and all that, as well as also cool to read about. So again, I have nothing against these. Well, we've seen various examples throughout the years. The only thing that you always want to make sure of is you treat them with respect. You treat these alternatives, these what-ifs, with respect to the original source material you're taking them from. That's all that I think should be done, in my opinion. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Again, I do apologize for being a little distracted here and kind of being ramblish. I'm watching the 49ers and Broncos game on NBC right now. But let me know what your thoughts are. How do you feel about the what-if stories? How did you feel about IDW's Deviation series? Do you think the good things to see become reality? Kind of ask that question visually of what if. Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Super chat, super stickers are open during the live chat. Super thanks afterwards. Also check me out at deviantart.com/BVW1979 and at patreon.com/BWRoses for the $1 or $3 tier. At Venmo at Brian-Warmer-2, Cash App at BWRoses98. Also check me out at my Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else, as well as check me out at BW Roses Discussions, all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora, and at VENMO for content you can't get anywhere else at BW Roses. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. And until then, again, I do apologize if I was a little distracted. I do have the game on. But until next time, I will talk to you later. But give me your thoughts. And I am out. So, see you later.